Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Like always, before we begin, I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank my sponsors, my anchor sponsors, my friends, Jake, Sergio, Camilo, and Dylan. Thank you guys for sponsoring the podcast. Also want to thank David Gastelum. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home in the Imperial or San Diego counties, make sure you contact David. He's not only a realtor, but an investor with over 20 years of experience, and he'll teach you along the way one of the most important investments of your life. His phone number is 760-235-9576. You can also find him on Facebook. Just search David Gastelum and you'll find him. Before I begin, though, I want to make sure that I let people know that this is not an endorsement. It's just a chance for the candidate to come on to the podcast and, let people get to know him and, maybe make a decision on whether, he's a candidate for you come election day. My guest today is a former police officer in the city of Calexico. He's also a resident of Calexico, and I believe he's part of the board for the Calexico Wellness Center. My guest today is Javier Moreno. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving the opportunity to, obviously, your viewers, listeners out there to have an opportunity to meet the candidates and have able to know them a little bit better and make a better choice. And then for me, obviously, having the opportunity to express my thoughts on my campaign platform. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes of your campaign and, why you're running and all this, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like I said, you were a former cop. You've been a resident of Calexico and you're on the board of the Calexico Wellness Center. So can you tell us a little bit, of the things that you do and you've done here for the city?
Right. Well, resident from Calexico. I'm educated here in Calexico and graduated from Calexico High School. And I, like everybody else back then, I went to IVC and got an associate's degree in criminal justice. And I just finished my doctorate in management. And I have a master's also in criminal justice. So I get involved with Calexico. After I retired in 2014, I decided to do something for the Calexico. Calexico saw me grow up, taught me a lot of things in the community. And so it's my way back to pay back to the community, get involved and I do a lot of things in the community for, there's so much to do here, especially COVID-19.
Yeah. So this is not the first time you've ran for city council, am I right?
That's correct. 2018, I ran, was able to secure 1,500 votes, my first time ever. It was an experience. I learned a lot. Meetings, going to meetings, now, of course, virtual meetings. Reading books, how did it's been critical, but my observations, more importantly, have helped me mature the most in my professional life as a public servant. So some of the mentors during that time influenced in the way I was coming up in politics, and I got to admire them from distance, and that got me motivated. And also because I've had a private career in public service as a law enforcement officer, I thought I have the right combination and qualifications to be a successful council member. So I was back then.
Yeah. You mentioned that you were, you've been a public servant, as a police officer, and now that you're running for Calexico City Council, do you feel that, as a public servant or an elected official, do you feel that you're held at a higher standard than, an everyday citizen?
Oh, absolutely. Interesting question, because I've held many positions and I worked at the state, at the federal, and obviously at the municipal level. Every appointment, every promotion that I got, I worked hard and I earned it. But I also was held to a certain standard, like anything else. You keep the promotion, the position, and you're held to a standard. So it's important that we keep it in perspective. So you also a role model in the organization, I learned. So if you want to put it in terms of what's happening now, it's important that we elect leaders in the community, and those leaders are held to a standard. Why? Because in this case, we're elected officials, we're in public view, and we should behave a certain way, and our positions that we have are held to a higher standard. Obviously, yes, I agree to that.
due to COVID, we haven't been able to, people haven't been able to meet face to face, and you as a candidate, how are you going about, trying to get your voice out there and trying to get people to know you and your platform?
Or in terms of COVID?
Well, how are you evolving this campaign into, because like I said, you ran in 2018. So how is it different now than it was in 2018?
It's a lot different. Obviously, COVID-19, wow, it's been a challenge in terms of health, in terms of security, in terms of economic development. What's happening with the businesses closing down, right? Because we got a mandate. But as a council member, you're elected to a position of trust. Just simply put, a position of trust. So you have a larger issues to tackle among the residents. In this case, the COVID-19. How do we keep our population safe? By that I mean safe in health and also in security, right? So it's a big challenge. In comparing and contrasting, before we took everything for granted. We took our health for granted. We took a lot of things for granted. So moving forward, it's going to be a huge challenge, I think, for anybody who's get up there in the city council to bridge that gap, that security, but yet at the same time maintain a municipal that's on budget, and then we are addressing all the issues that Calexico has to deal with.
Yeah. We've had to manage with, the situation, and we're doing a lot of things like through Zoom or Facebook Lives or Instagram Lives. A lot of citizens in Calexico feel that there's not enough transparency when it comes to situations or decisions that the council or city management is doing. And a lot of people, including me, I feel that a lot of elected officials, once they get elected, they kind of like just, hide and we don't see them again till come, 4 years later, 2 years later, when they're trying to run for re-election. Is it important for you to, keep an open conversation with the community in order to kind of like make them feel that, some of the decisions or choices that you would make as a candidate, as an elected official, as a city council member, how important is it to have a communication in order for the community to feel that there's a transparency there?
It's very important. One of the things that my goal is to work alongside this individual, in this case, the citizens, and engage them. There's a lot of talk that, people don't go to city council meetings. Only when there's a crisis, people will go out there and start questioning the government. Well, I want to do a little bit different. I want to be able to be the council member who goes to the community where they can't come to us. I mean, Calexico is not that big. We know those communities out there. La Lara, Kennedy Gardens, the East Side. My goal is to go out there and engage them and make sure everyone is heard. I know many citizens do not feel that they have time for local politics or do not have the interest because they do not know how the issues affect them. We need to involve their voice. A top priority for me is to increase resident involvement in discussing issues. Particularly, I believe we need to reach out in different ways to get their insight. We have no economic development. Our next generation of college graduates have no opportunities here. So I want to continue growing our city in a positive direction, and we can only do that by bridging that gap. One of my concerns it's simply the miscommunication. I take it as miscommunication than anything else. Whether if the citizens are not going to city council meetings, or not engaged, or not even talking to the city council members when they see them on the streets, or in the other case where the city council members are not reaching out to the citizens, whether if it's town hall meetings, meet them on different parts of a neighborhood. But my goal is to simply understand where the sources of the concerns come from. Is there still an issue? Work towards that with the process, find out the facts, discuss and move on. So I will first try to seek understand the issue and communicate to my constituents, in this case, my other council members, and follow up with possible solutions.
A lot of people might say that, we've been, including myself, we've been long life citizens of Calexico, and, we've been here all of our lives. But sometimes that doesn't really mean that, your your constituents or your population.
Right.
We might grow up in this group of, this social group where it's just our friends, but, it's Calexico is more than, our little group of friends. Do you feel that, being a part of the Calexico Police Department and being part of the board of the Calexico Wellness Center, do you feel that you've gone to know the community of Calexico and not only, say that the community?
Well, yes, because since 2018, when I ran the first time, I've told people, look, I've not stopped campaigning, and by that mean my more campaigning is I've not stopped what I've been doing. What I've been doing is community volunteer. Well, I volunteered extensively at the city, but it got to a point where my sphere of influence and volunteerism extended to the county. So now, put it in perspective, and as a point of reference, where I'm at now compared to 3 years ago, I volunteer as a president of the board for the Calexico Wellness Center. I also volunteer as president of the board for the Women Haven. I'm also part of the executive board member, board of directors for the Continuum of Care Council. That was formerly known as the Homeless Task Force. I also part of a member of the Calexico Unified School District Measure V Oversight Committee. I'm also part of that, and I also volunteer with the Brown Bag Coalition, feeding the homeless. And tomorrow I'll be feeding the homeless in the evening. So as leaders, we have a unique opportunity. Or at least for me, I had a unique opportunity to shape and cement and leverage my community, and by volunteering and hearing and observing the needs, and where can I, as an elected official representing the residents, because we work for the citizens. Remember that we work for them, and we're held accountable to them. And I want to make the greatest impact for them. So we here in Calexico, we have a culture of government where we have differences. Okay, now that's fine. But what happens when somebody gets elected? They make all these campaign promises. I'm not going to be a candidate who's going to promise you, a lot of things. First of all, because I don't know, I'm not in there. But I can tell you one thing: I am going to be telling the truth, the way it is, and how we can better Calexico. But I need to work with the citizens. I don't have an agenda driven. In other words.
Going forward, we know that, we're going to have a hard time, due to COVID. The next 6 months to a year are going to be, kind of tough for the city. What are some of the things that you foresee that are going to happen? How do you plan on facing those and working through those?
Right. A little bit on that, just because I work with the Calexico Wellness Center and I talk to doctors every day, nurses. I understand a little bit more of the healthcare. As you know, we live in a very underserved community, and by that community, I include also the whole region, Imperial County, not just Calexico. But if you want to put Calexico, because this is where I'm at, I think the Calexico's healthcare infrastructure is rustic and inadequate for many reasons. Whether if it's because the federal money's not coming down, we're just rural, very rural. So as you know, our local hospital, we only have 2. And here in Calexico, we don't have a hospital. The last time we had a hospital was closed down. So we're limited already in hospital beds, ICU, ventilators, and everything else. And here, the COVID-19, be able to treat patients, it's going to be a challenge. Also, our ambulances, we got them hospitals on wheels. So I believe Calexico residents are seeking care here in Calexico, but they also want to know what is the leaders are going to be doing to address those challenges. So it's one of the things that you'll be able to respond to COVID-19 includes, like I said before, the EMS services. We'll make sure we have those infrastructures in place, and we do have enough ambulances here to address any issues with COVID-19.
Recently, we've seen this trend of young citizens getting involved, and a lot of them have come back to Calexico because they were away to college, and due to COVID, they had to come back. Now they're really getting involved in terms of in terms of government, and making sure that everybody is being treated fairly. What do you think of this new trend of, this young generation asking for change and making sure that everybody, like you said, we're a community that's really underserved, and there's a lot of quote unquote poverty, unemployment, people renting. And what do you feel of this young generation asking for change?
Change is good always. I'm always a believer that change is good. Doesn't bring negative, nothing. It's good for sometimes when you change. What I read on Facebook and social media with these young groups, they're very, very passionate about integrity, holding their elected officials accountable. And I believe we do need fresh ideas. On the other hand, if you're going to go about doing that, there is a process, there is a way to do it. You can express your First Amendment rights, but I believe that there's a process how to do it. If they're going to be out there and expressing their concerns, more power to them. I remember when I was young, Calexico, I was told, you have something to say, express it. But there was a way also to express your views. And by that, I believe that's what the problem is right now, that they're putting their elected officials on check, right? And they want to know, this is what's going on, because they're young, they're inexperienced. But it's good. They're young. They have a lot of life ahead of them, and more power to them. So, and now in terms of the city working with that group, they're bridging that gap, putting that together, coming to a consensus, and meet you halfway, what you got to offer and what I have to offer. It works better for everybody instead of fighting and pointing fingers. This is not about pointing fingers. It's about having solutions. If you want to talk cheap. If you want to read, I can read a book. But I want solutions. If a young guy or an old guy, or young in this case, has solutions, let's talk about what are your solutions. How are we going to get towards your point and help you with your costs in this case?
Yeah. So if elected, how would you maybe try to work with this young group that's trying to bring change to the city?
Yeah. Well, for example, one of the things that I was thinking the other, I was talking to a young student from IVC, this deal with the homeless. We do have homeless population of students at IVC Junior College. I believe so at the high school level as well. Mm-hmm. And then at the San Diego State University. So one of the challenges we have with that, the frustration they have because the adults are not providing shelter or not providing, I believe it's a part of, not because so much they're not doing anything. I believe it's because nobody's saying anything, nobody's addressing it. So to find a place safe and secure for them to live while they're going to college, and also, by the way, navigating through a COVID-19 pandemic, wow, it's hard, and that's why they're protesting a certain way because, hey, what's going on? You're not coming and helping us. That's where the social justice comes in, and that's one of the groups that Marlene Thomas has at IVC, that's Imperial County Social Justice Committee. And by the way, did you know about 17% of community college students been reported, according to the U.S. Department of Justice in 2017, and 35% of Americans homeless population are under age of 24. That did not happen when I was going to school. When I was going to college, that was not happening. So what happens with those students? The frustration is that, they don't have a place to sleep, or perhaps maybe they're also missing a meal. And that's really, that's very, very stressful. Some of them are transient. So those are the barriers they're facing, among other things, trying to find a place to have a decent meal and sleep, and then transportation, completing their homework assignment, finish up a full grade at school. It's a big challenge for them. So we need to stay focused and find solutions for them. That's one reason why I volunteer myself with the homeless task force. I'm part of that executive board member. And so I've been there for going a little bit over a year now. And I have the insight that we'll bit of help the students. One of the things, just real quick, is Project Room Key, where Calexico has in a position to receive 10 trailers from the county. And by the way, this all comes from the Governor Newsom of a $300 million budget we have for all the homeless issues in California. So Calexico is a recipient of that. And I may add also the Calexico Wellness Center is also working with the Calexico Catholic Charities of Diocese of San Diego to put those trailers somewhere and accommodate, in this case, if it's homeless students.
I mean, we've had a lot of, division because of the decisions or undecisions that this current board has, done. What are some of the decisions that, the board has done that you would change, like including in our water quality, people are up in hands because they feel our water quality isn't up to par. In a decision of they didn't make a decision when it came to the renters moratorium. All these things that are going on that are, people are really up in hands about right now. What are some of the things that you would have done differently than our current board did?
In terms of the water quality, I know the city tests the water on a quarterly basis, and I know they had an issue where the numbers and I guess the lab work, the results they got back were not appropriate. Does that mean that we cannot bathe and drink the water? I think it's a misconception. I don't know if because the city didn't do a good job of maybe explaining that, or the citizens, what the perception was because they didn't understand it. But definitely, if I was a city council member, I would probably step it up a notch, because if you're having people, the citizens, second guessing and already complaining about certain things, there's some miscommunication somewhere. So it's important that we address those issues there. But another issue that came up with a second time that the city tested the water, I believe it was in February. Again, the same thing. It wasn't exceeding the norms, but by law, the city has to advise the ratepayers in their water bill that we exceeded by the way, we exceeded that, but they're safe to drink. So that's how you address that problem. So what your question is, does the city do enough of that? Well, I think they do enough, but so they won't get in trouble. But I'm thinking more is, okay, if there's still talk out there, they're just gossip. Well, how do you take care of gossip? You go back in the community and you explain, right? You do an initiative. You work a little harder because you're not the public, the citizens are not being receptive and something's going on. The other thing also I was going to mention, since you talk about issues like that, is that the city by law has to conclude a budget. Okay, and I know for many years, growing up in the community, I know when I was a police officer, for that matter, I speak from experience. We always was either we're getting a furlough, we're getting the equipment that we needed because the city was making a budget. I don't know what that was about, but I can tell you that to eliminate that problem, you need to get together with your finance officer, your city manager, and every quarter you work towards that budget. You don't wait a couple of weeks or a couple of months when the budget's due, and then you're scrambling to cut all these services and and all this, and then it affects the taxpayers and affects your employees. So my idea is to work on a quarterly basis and boom, address the issues before they can become a big problem. And then when the budget comes in to approve the budget, then you already got it done.
And what are your thoughts on the, undecision and when it came down to the eviction moratorium?
On that, what I read initially, that moratorium was specifically when you want to call it a law, if you want to mandate from the government, came that it was initially was for the COVID-19 families who were experiencing homelessness and who got evicted, and that was exactly for that. But those resources were there for that reason. But what happened, because everybody got affected, not just the COVID patients, everybody got affected. So yes, I believe the city should have done a better job, not waited till it got a problem. And it should have supported the businesses. It should have supported the residents, and more importantly, should have supported the landlords. Now there is a moratorium for that, and I know it's in place. It didn't go well with the citizens because I believe by the time it got to it, it just became a problem, and a lot of people were we're trying to get evicted, but that didn't happen. But the resources were there, so it's important that the city leaders, in this case, city council members, are already on the phone talking to the state, the county partners, the legislator, whoever they got to contact and say, look, we're in Calexico, we're having this problem, and we need some help. And so the resources should be there. Everything comes from the federal government. Eventually works its way down to the state and then the county and us. But I think that the city should have been done a little bit faster job on addressing that problem. Yeah, we got real close. So that should not happen. That should not happen in Calexico.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest thing was that, they were going off to break and they could have made a decision or it was something that it was foreseen that it was going to happen. And they were willing to go on a break and wait, like a month to kind of talk about it again. That's
right. Let me tell you about a break on that. I think, I read, actually I went online and looked at the, I didn't go well with me. That's just me personally. Okay. I'm not judging anybody, but the fact that when you say we have nothing to discuss and we have nothing to say, do something. We're in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay. Come on. It's that you need to not go on the black, not during a pandemic. You need to find something. Okay. And I'm sure there was something, whether if it's an excuse or a vacation, whatever. But I think the city should have said, we're normally at this time of the year on normal circumstances, we'd go black on August, September, whatever it is. But citizens of Calexico, because we're going through a pandemic, we're not going to take a break. And we're going to be open and we're going to discuss issues, especially with health. And so, I would not have voted on that. I would have said, we're not taking a break. We need to stay open. We need to reach out to the people. What's going on? And what help do they need right now? Pandemic. Yeah.
I know that you do a lot of research and you read and talk to people. What do you know about the Santo Tomas issue? That's something that also is, something that the community wants to see what's going to happen and why is it not open or what do they need to do to, get these people back to work?
Right. I was, when this happened, I was called from somebody that they were at that San Tomas that was the day after the fire. Okay. I was in church and the lady called me. She knows me very well. And as soon as I left church, I went over there and I was trying to get more insight. Even though it happened in December, we had just gone over the elections. And I told everybody, look, I'm not here. I didn't get elected, but I'm here because I care about you guys. So my understanding was there was a bunch of violations and that they shut it down because of that reason, because of the fire, besides the fire. And I told the people there, look, the fire department has to do an investigation. You can't come in this place. It's a crime scene. Let it work to the process. That's a procedure. Let me tell you what's going to happen. So I explained to them what the procedure, because I was familiar with that. So everybody went home, but they still, they weren't happy because the city was not reaching out. And I told them, you're not going to have the city leaders here because that's the way it is. But I'm going to tell you something. Can this be remedied? Yeah. Dialogue with the city, dialogue with your city mayor. And so I understood that there was the reason they shut them down because there was violations after the investigation. And in order for the San Tomas to reopen, they would have to, take care of all the violations. And also that was part of the owner. On one side, you had the owner, and then the other side, you had the vendors, the real tight new group of vendors who've been there for decades and decades. And by the way, I know some of them. So I sympathize with them. And I tell them, look, this is going to get resolved. If you do reach out, but do it in a manner that is professional, and then talk to your leaders at our city hall. That did not happen. And it went around for the longest time. Eventually, I think, I believe the owner, by the time that was going to reopen that San Tomas, required a lot of money. The owner was not interested, and that created a division, and it created a misinformation that the city was not cooperating with the vendors. On one part, you had the owner didn't want to open for whatever reasons. She's the owner; she can do whatever she wants. And then the other half is you have the families who've been there, and all the livelihood went down the flames. And I know that they tried to open for a couple of times. I guess the state or the county. Well, I believe the city allowed them to work while the thing was getting resolved, and that didn't work out either because they wanted to open the whole San Tomas. But that was going to require a lot of money, a lot of effort, and that was not going to happen. And then eventually, I think they went to arbitration, and they tried to meet halfway. That didn't happen, unfortunately. So that's the problem with that because of the fire. Yeah. And by the way, it wasn't the only fire. They had a previous one many years ago, and so So the owner knew about those violations, but I'm not pointing fingers. But in retrospect, the ones that got caught in the middle is those families who forever and ever working there, and that's totally not fair.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like I'm sure that the city knew of these violations prior to the fire, and nobody was following up on these violations. And and like you said, it sucks for these people that these were their livelihoods, and they can't go back to work now. So and it's hard to explain to people I guess like the politics and the bureaucracy of having a business, and having a business like a Santo Tomas, where like it's a lot of vendors, it's a lot of people that come in here, and if nobody's really keeping an eye on making sure that fire lanes are clear, they're not putting electricity where it's not supposed to, things like this happen. And at the end of the day, the people who are affected are the people who sold there, and not only those people but the employees that they had. It's a lot of people that are affected by this situation, and at the end of the day, like, it also affects our economy, because a lot of tax revenue came from that. But yeah, it sucks, and hopefully we can get this sorted out soon. But yeah, it sucks. Javier, is there something that you want to point out that I didn't talk to you about? Any closing thoughts?
Well, a couple of things. The financial aspect with the city of Calexico. We just got out of a bankrupt. Remember, we're about $3.5 million, whatever it was, and we dodged that bullet. But I got to give kudos to the city council member during that time, and obviously the administrator and all the workers for putting also their share, because they went on furlough and everything else. Yeah. That cannot happen. Whatever the reasons were, I was not there. I can only speculate because what I talk to people. Obviously, having a sound budget that takes care of everybody, it's going to be a challenge, especially coming out to COVID-19. So we have that. We're all vulnerable, very vulnerable for that reason. Okay, so we don't have a hospital. We need to take care of the people here in Calexico in terms of the health. Have a master plan how we're going to fully reopen and how we're going to still be practicing. But things are going to be done differently now with COVID-19. And we also have the older population that I don't know if anybody thinks about or talks about or have ever talked about in your program, but who are susceptible to COVID-19. They're very vulnerable. And by the way, according in the state of California, they're at risk. So a lot of resources available for them. So being older in Calexico it's a risk. So another thing is, like I said, economic, right? Our region is most vulnerable. Our Calexico is more vulnerable economically, which tends to have a high poverty rates. In Calexico, low rates of insurance coverage. Our residents are more likely to work in the agricultural field. We have farm workers. And by the way, they're coming already. They're coming down from Salinas up north. It's the weather changing. So we're going to have more population. And for that, we need more resources. And when we have a municipality who has limited resources, that's a huge challenge there. I'm telling you, Calexico typically has fewer healthcare resources, fewer physicians, and other providers here. I know that because I collect for Wellness Center. I'm very, very knowledgeable with that. And primarily because they don't have a hospital. That affects our community. Very, 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 very much affects our community. So going forward, to support and maintain a city, we need to have a master plan going forward that either supplements or the services that we have. Additionally, I believe continued effort to incentivize and reward those providers to take and come out of here and provide those services will also be a great, huge help. So yeah, so we're at disadvantage right now going COVID-19. That's what I want to say.
Can you tell me? I was looking at your banner back there. Can you tell me a little bit about your slogan? Working with you for a change.
Working with you for a change. I came out with a slogan. We need change in Calexico. There's a lot of things to address. As you know, if you go around Calexico, downtown it's a disrepair. Okay. Wow, a lot of empty buildings. At least clean the streets. And we want to change that. I'm a person who gets his hands dirty. I don't like to sit behind a desk. I would be a candidate who would be going out there and talking to, in this case, the business district. They do contribute to the business district. But right now, everybody's on a moratorium. So that, the other thing also, change for what? Change because I'm a different person. I don't have any political ties. I don't have any families, even though my last name is Moreno. You know, people say you're Moreno to John Moreno. I'm not. You know, I went to school with him, but that's fine. But I'm from Calexico. I don't have a personal agenda. I don't pay favoritism to anybody. I am doing my own campaign on my own money. Yes, I do have a couple of people that donate. Not enough, but you don't need enough here. You need money. You don't need. You need passion. You need drive. You need to understand the public. You need to go out there and be an elected official who understands that. But they're not coming to City Hall. Okay, we can put all the podcasts. We can do all the Facebook. Okay, we do all the media you want. But some of these people here, because they don't have internet, hey, guess what? We need to go out there. We need to go out there and knock on doors and have a little, obviously practicing social distancing, masks and all that. That's what I want to do. I want to go to the communities and hold those meetings there. Aside from having my weekly communities, come back with a list of things and talk to my other city council members so we can address those issues. And I also challenge the city council members, whoever that might be. That's the change that I'm bringing. I'm also bringing a change that what I've learned for volunteering is that I'm not here for a paycheck. I'm retired. I already retired. I have my own benefits. Okay. I'm not here to collect a paycheck. I'm not here to collect I'm here to help the citizens. And I'll also bring the change that for the past 2.5 years, I've networked with a lot of organizations, and I still have contacts at the state level. Even though I work with the DA, Attorney General's office, I still have contacts with my some of my friends still stay there, so I do have contacts there. At the county, I've also networked with the county. Mr. Cachua, Eduardo Escobar, who's from Calexico, he was a city council member, and he's now there. I also network with him. I also know the board of supervisors. I know each and of them. I know the healthcare system very well. I know the doctors. I know the CEO from both CEO from El Centro and then Brawley Hospital. Law enforcement, criminal justice. That's my DNA. I'm familiar the way it is. So I bring a lot of good resources, a lot of good network, a lot of good contacts. That I can tap into that. So if some situation comes up, whether if it's safety, I reach out to my constituents, the people that I know, because I work with them. If it has healthcare, I reach out with that as well. And if it's economic development, I also have contacts at the workforce development. By the way, Camilo Garcia is also running for city council, and I work with him also. So I get along with just about everybody.
Yeah, and I feel that at the end of the day, it's it's good for. If a city council member has a good standing relationship with other people in the community, including other city council members, it's good that, that we have that. Well, Javier, thank you for your time. I know you're busy with your campaign and all the other things that you do. I do want to wish you luck. And I want to remind everybody, this is not an endorsement. I'm just, talking to the candidates so that you get to know them. And yeah, I just want to remind everybody to wear your face mask, wash your face, wash your hands, social distance, and stay safe. And thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.